And we are back with the second part of the demonstration of landscape. And the first thing I noticed when I was waiting for the paper to dry was that structure here. I lined up the vegetation too much. We want to break this line. The vegetation never occurs one side by side, so we need to fix this. And the way I'm doing, I'm gonna add a little more scrap the paper a little bit, but I will also add some vegetation. I'm using an old brush, and I'm gonna use my little tool here to add a bit of, see, I'm just there you go. I don't mind that I have a lot of salt on my painting right now. Get some definition on this path. Okay. Same thing here. If you have the feeling that this vegetation is maybe too dark, you can always blot it out. And remove a little bit of the intensity. And I'm gonna add the water right there. Water and raw sienna, I'm adding right here. I'm just dumping some color and some water. And going towards the structure. And I'm gonna add some scratches right here. I just wanna break this line. I ended up putting all the vegetation in a solid line, which looks a little weird. Okay, there we go. Feels much better, at least for me it does feel better. Salt is running. This is just a number 2 brush. I just wanna blend a little more this vegetation that I added. And I'm gonna do a little bit of negative painting here with burnt umber and raw sienna. I just add a tiny bit of paint and I create a little bit of the illusion that those are stones. But they are just markings on the paper. And the hard work is to the viewer. The viewer is going, the brain of the viewer is gonna tell them what they are actually seeing or not seeing. I'm just giving them some evidence that there are some structure here. And I'm using my tiny brush because I want to have more control about that. I'm adding Cobalt Violet to my raw Sienna. It gives me a very gentle gray that looks great on shadow areas. And again, I'm just being very gentle here. I probably can use a bigger brush. This is a number 5. And what I'm doing here, I add some paint and then I spread it gently. And every time I do that, I create a little more illusion of stacking stones. And that part of the process, for me, I love to do this, but I also need to be careful not to overdo it. The problem of negative painting is that you always feel like you need a little more paint, and not necessarily you do. And the big enemy of a watercolor painter is always to go too dark. If you go too dark, it's very difficult to go back to the original value that you wanted. I'm painting inside the window. The window should have approximately the same width of the wall. Okay, dumping some color. Just this mix is just raw sienna with cobalt blue. Sorry, cobalt violet. And I'm doing this side that is in the shadows. And here we are. This part of the structure is lighter because it's receiving the sunlight, but still we need to add a tiny bit of detail to make sure the viewer understands as part of the wall. And I'm just doing some markings with raw sienna. I want a bit of texture, but lighter. And this is the time that you can make a decision that you need some yellow rather than raw sienna. You can use New Gamboja or lemon yellow. And we're gonna let this dry. And if we need, we come back Again, I'm just constructing some structures. I ditched my picture long ago. I think if you have been following my videos, I just start with the reference, and at certain point I just leave the painting be whatever it wants to be without worrying too much with the reference. Of course, this is also valid when you're doing a commission. Then you have to be very precise and do and follow your picture, your photograph, your reference very accurately. But if you're just having fun painting something you like, you don't have to worry too much about what you're painting, as long as you like it. All right, I'm gonna add a little more detail here, and right now I'm gonna remove the salt. The coarse salt leave those markings as if they were little rocks, and they are interesting, or at least I think they are interesting. Again, I'm going to change my brush to bristle, and I'm going to start adding some vegetation right there. And I'm basically disturbing the surface. Creating the illusion that there is some vegetation. The strangest part of painting landscapes on the desert is that you have all these evergreen plants. They have this very dark green that really doesn't quite belong to the landscape, but they do exist. Again, if it bothers you, if it's too green and bothers you, add some red or orange a little bit, just to make sure that I could, in principle, maybe that's what I'm gonna do, add some salt. And I'm gonna use a thin refined again on. I think I'm gonna sign right here, so I'm just gonna leave it flat. We are now looking for places where we can improve. Here, or change. I'm using this same green mixture to the side. Whenever you add a new color or a new mix to your painting, make sure that you can find everywhere, or at least everywhere on the ground. So yeah, I know I'm using a lot of salt on this particular, and I like to drop a little bit of water where I put the salt to create as much drama as possible. I'm gonna come back and make sure that I have this edge. And